Is it really possible that it has only been 1 year of this bullshit? It's, almost unimaginable, but as we pass through Dr. King's birthday celebration, we are, we are coming up on the anniversary of the inauguration. So, congratulations to us and to our once proud democracy. I'm jumping on for a short one tonight in reaction to a few reports about Mexico as kind of the next um target of choice of the Trump regime. And Venezuela, it's about immigration. Oh no, it's about drugs. Oh no, it's really just about oil. And of course, there are elements of all three involved and used as a justification for um, murdering, while not perhaps not innocent human beings, because none of us are, but killing men in boats in the Caribbean, um, men that were not identified to a sufficient degree that they could be sure who they were killing. They were just shooting at boats because they presumably were carrying cocaine. Was that true in certain instances? Absolutely, I'm sure it was. That happens. It's part of the commerce of the Caribbean, and particularly in that area. And it is undeniable that Colombia has roots that bring drugs through Venezuela to the beaches. I've had the pleasure of seeing it live in the evening, on a balmy evening in Chichiriviche. It happens. It is the way it's the route. And product goes to small boats, uh, lanchas, right? That are maneuverable and small, and you can lift them and move them around and hide them. And they go on to bigger boats, and then bigger boats go fast. And one very popular route back in the bad old days when I was down there, not advocating for smuggling narcotics, but a tried and true route was uh, through Haiti, right? because um, because of the impoverished nature of the country as a whole. And if you watch at all what's going on there, it's a country now that is completely run by gangs and militias. There is no functioning government in Haiti. I frequently talk to friends from the other side of the line on the island of Dominica, in the Dominican Republic, and it's just a very unfortunate situation. But that was a very popular route for smuggling route for the small amount that was going along that route to the U.S. And as has been well reported, much of that Caribbean haul ends up going to via Africa into Europe. Right? So it's undeniable that there was illicit activity going on, but Carrier Gerald R. Ford Carrier Battle Group at $65 million a week, right? And we learned kind of the knock-on effects, the second order effects, if you will, of tasking a carrier battle group, which we don't have thousands of, ones that are out and available. I believe right now we have six or maybe seven. But Gerald R. Ford was previously tasked to to a region that would include Iran. And as you remember, there's been a little bit of commotion. So as of last week, they were steaming another carrier battle group towards that region to protect let's see, to protect the shipment routes for oil because Donald Trump's powerful friends in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, KSA, and UAE are going to demand some protection to make sure that the oil keeps flowing for his homeboys. Right? And the Ford, the carrier battle group, the Ford, it's the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier itself, is overdue for extensive maintenance too. So there are admirals that were not speaking publicly because you don't want to get on the grievance list of DJT. But was it advisable to use that carrier battle group in the first place for an exercise that could have been could have never happened, and there wouldn't have been a major difference in the security of the United States had they said no to this to the operation in the Caribbean or done it on a smaller scale. Again, the admirals aren't going to talk about it because Pistol Pete Hegseth will make them do push-ups, humiliate them in public, and if they were men of color, they would have already been fired. If they were women, they would have already been fired. So the remaining admirals are probably walking a little bit gingerly around the old Pentagon. So, excuse me. But Mexico is, I guess, one of the truths, one of the few truths coming out of the administration is is about fentanyl. Not the part about fentanyl coming from Venezuela, because it doesn't. Not the part that fentanyl is coming from other points in South and Central America, because it isn't. But fentanyl is where the attention needs to be drawn. Cocaine's, cocaine's an illegal drug I was going to say in proper quantities. Yeah, I did live in Miami for a while. In sufficient quantities, cocaine can be dangerous, but that's not what's killing tens of thousands of American citizens. It's fentanyl, and the drug itself, using fentanyl with mixing it with heroin, and sometimes in a backwards ass speedball, uh, mixing it with cocaine, is extraordinarily dangerous, and that people get addicted to it quickly. The oxys and roxys, the oxycodone is too expensive for most to indulge in if they have got, many people have a surgery or chronic pain and they get prescribed the oxycodone, and then the doctor says no mas, and ge- they have been had been hooked on the drug, become dependent on it, and then you get into that cycle where you're, you know, stealing from your family, pawning your car, and because the oxycodone is so expensive, the fentanyl is much less so, but it's, by order of magnitude times 17, more deadly than the oxys. So it's a very dangerous drug, and it does over 90% of the fentanyl that comes into the United States does in fact come from Mexico. And then to run it back to its genesis, um, the source, not Genesis, the book, where the Bible thumping Republicans in the Senate and the House of Representatives, when they're holding up the Bible and saying that by God they're going to stand by their constituents and by their dear president, and then they blaspheme themselves and embarrass, shit themselves in front of their children. That's a different sort of Genesis. So the if 90% of the fentanyl comes from Mexico, nearly 90% of the distillates that that are the component parts of manufacturing fentanyl come from China. That's that's not in dispute. An alarming trend in India as a new source of, diversification is everything, and supply chains are a bitch. More recently, in this past year, more of the distillates have come from India, and that's trending up because if the people that are manufacturing those drugs in China and need to get it out, and if you rely on one route, that's a problem. And the cartels in Mexico need a steady supply to keep the money machine turning. Just from a what can Donald Trump do if he stood up carefully and screamed about he was declaring fentanyl a national security risk, and we're going to do everything we can to eliminate the international supply of fentanyl and its distillates, then that would mean that we would be sending warships to South Asia, right? That would mean that we would be sending our navy to confront China because the distillates are smuggled out through Myanmar, the former Burma, home to some of the most profound human rights violations on the planet. Not Sudan level violations, but pretty damn close. The Rohingya and otherwise, right? Very tough times. A very easy place to run smuggling operations because of the fractious nature of the governance, the corrupt military government. That's where Aung San Suu Kyi was, the great freedom fighter, who's now pretty close to 80 and has been on house arrest on and off for decades in her home country. One of the great heroes on the level. Nobody's Dr. King, but she's one of those transcendent um, patriots and defenders of liberty that is worthy of note and study. I don't know if the Trump administration is currently burning the history books in regard to that fine lady, but they need to attack all of the black and brown history first. So maybe they haven't got to the Asian part of the program yet. So Trump could stand up and say we're going to eviscerate the scourge of fentanyl, but that would require direct military confrontation with China. And Trump is scared to death. And Trump and his controller, Vladimir Putin, are in fact scared to death of Xi Jinping with good reason, because he's bigger, he's badder, he's uh, as ruthless as Putin and as powerful as Trump, and not standing for elections. And he could give a flying F about the feelings of DJT, right? So we're not going to confront him. just as I am going to gamble that we have sold out Taiwan, because why else would China allow Donald Trump to interrupt the flow of their oil from Venezuela and or their oil from Iran? What just Don, Donald Trump calls up Xi Jinping and says, "Hey, I know you guys need a lot of oil, but I got to go do a little FAFO down in the Caribbean here." And what that means is the oil that you were shipping through Cuba to Malaysia, reflagging and getting to China, and whatever you've been doing under Vladimir Putin's protection through through the former Persian Empire, we're gonna fuck around with that for a little while. Your oil flow is going to be interrupted. Are you good with that? Are you good? You know, the answer is going to be no, unless he's getting something in exchange. And I am going to stick to my guns. That what Donald Trump did, and we'll see it in living color after he gets done, uh, letting urine run down his leg in Davos starting tomorrow. Then I'll have something on that, I'm sure, tomorrow late afternoon, um, in regard to Greenland. But Xi Jinping doesn't have to give anything away, and that isn't the way that the Chinese Communist Party operates. They're not going to get into a war of choice. They're not going to go guns a-blazing at the US military, but at the same time, they're not gonna get punked by a retired reality TV star with a Secretary uh, of Defense that's a retired weekend Fox host. Xi Jing Xi Xi Jinping is a professional killer. He is a very dangerous man with, 1.4 billion in the country. And as we've talked about before, just in the security services apparatus, 650,000 bodies, right? Yeah. The army, I mean, overwhelming. Reserve. Everybody's a reserve in China, and when he tells you to, you're a reserve. But they have well over a million under arms. In addition to that, they had the spy apparatus, and and they use it wisely and aggressively. So there are no secrets. You know, anything as for later this week too is revisiting the TikTok meets Elon and Twitter meets Zuckerberg and all of that, what that means to us as we go towards the elections. Because they are, as we talked about on yesterday's pod, we're coming up on that. Yeah, it's much less than a year away. And we got a lot of work to do. And each and every operation like Minneapolis gives Trump a way to perfect his plans for disrupting elections, plus test out the Supreme Court to see where they're going to let him go. And of course, think about it. Think about it. Ask your 10-year-old grandkid about it. Set it all up. Wait till the last minute. Make a big splash in October, and it's going to be tough sledding. So we're going to rely on people like Mr. Elias. Tireless defenders of election integrity and others. the wisdom of uh, Steve Vladeck, right, from Georgetown, people that are going to guide us through this what is going to be a very contentious trip from here to election day, first Tuesday in November. But we're not lying down. You know, it's there will be a bunch of court battles, and we'll be ready for that. If you saw, just as an inspiration, as Gavin Newsom was a day earlier than your dear president to Davos and was giving comments today, and just when he comes out and he was asked about the European leaders, he was like, dude, he's from California, so allow me. He was cajoling is the most polite way to put it, but he was forcefully suggesting that Europe had to get their shit together and stand up against Donald J. Trump, because there ain't no more time to mess around. And he made the endlessly entertaining comment about knee pads, and that he actually he has them in his store, maybe on his website, that his merch includes knee pads if spineless politicians need knee pads before they go to visit the president, which is kind of vulgar in the most wonderful way. I mean, I wouldn't want to say that to my grandma, but she left us only about 25 plus years ago, and uh, and the place that I'm eventually going, I may never see her, so she's going to probably leave me alone. In any case, I wanted to touch on Ms. You know, the one difference. I'll just make a distinction between Mexico and Venezuela. I mean, there's only a million of them, and I've enjoyed Venezuela. I've been to whatever dozen times ish, and Mexico in that ballpark. I mean, I've been alive for a while. Uh, Wonderful countries, but the Mexico is our neighbor on our border. The president, newly elected president, Sheinbaum, excuse me, is a legitimate PhD scientist who specializes in energy. She is introducing new green energy initiatives. She's up against the same stuff that any US leader would be up against with quote unquote big oil. We need more wind, need more solar and other things, more nuclear. And that energy lobby, the oil lobby, is powerful. And they have been for, 125 plus years for Standard Oil, etc. So they're rich and they're powerful and they're good at this and they have the best lawyers and they have the best lobbyists. And she's facing the exact same thing. And the her predecessor, President Obrador, he was more a path of least resistance on fighting for clean energy kind of guy. No judgment, you know. That's a tough job for the woman, first woman of Jewish heritage to be which blows my mind. Mexico. She's doing a magnificent job. She used to run Mexico City, which that Mexico City. If you go on uh, like what Insurgentes, right, the major thoroughfare that goes through the city. People are like, oh yeah, well, I'll meet you down at Insurgentes for a cup of coffee. It's like, yeah, Well, Insurgentes is, I think it's about 27 miles long. So do you want to be a little bit more specific? Um, Mexico is an extremely important partner. They're our neighbor. They're our neighbor on the border. Our entire immigration policy today and going forward depends on a productive relationship with them. We have sent, as I posted a little bit earlier, 90, I said upwards of 90, I think it's 96 cartel members. And these are low level guys. I'm not trying to embarrass them. I'm not calling them micro like I do your president. These are just, these are middle managers and below. And they were in prison in Mexico. They were wanted by the United States formerly Department of Justice, whatever the heck Pamela Joe Bondi is running now. I'm not sure. But we had warrants for their arrest, and we negotiated in 2 or 3 deliveries. We've got moving up on 100 of these men. But I know because he's your president, and this is how he rolls. The false equivalents, right? We got 100. We took them. We took these hardened criminals, and we threw them in American prisons, and they're going to die in there like the dogs that they are, and we're going to treat them whatever. You think about the idiots that are on the news right now representing the administration, including Pamela Joe Bondi, that we're going to have no mercy with these people that are responsible for the death of 5 trillion Americans in the last year alone. We got them. Okay. Let's just let's rewind to December, where the pardon was written, but the release granted in the first week of December for one very successful businessman and former president of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez, convicted to 40 odd years in federal prison in the United States for importing. I know we've done this before in this forum, but it's fun to talk about because it's almost incomprehensible. If it weren't Donald Trump, it would be completely incomprehensible. But it's your boy. It's that guy. So DJT, not just not a creative pardon, not one with he doesn't, do you want to put him on probation? You want to make sure that he's going to be a good boy when he leaves? Well, that would complicate things in a way because in exchange for for his unconditional pardon, Bitcoin miraculously appears in that World Liberty Financial institution, which is the cryptocurrency company that is controlled entirely by the Trump family, with a couple random Witkoffs, but it's the home team, right? So he was able to get himself out with a unconditional pardon. And as I pointed out in the note, those pardons are not prospective, meaning that, and this is important for as these Melandros start to get smacked around in the Trump administration, or they tap out and they leave and they said, Donald, can I have a pardon, please? Because I got to leave because, my kid's tired and uh, my kid's in crisis because she had to swim against a transgender kid in the same pool, whatever the Christian nationalists come up with. As these people start to leave, they're going to be asking for pardons. Trump, because he's a dick, is going to be holding the promise of a pardon over because he wants something in return, because he doesn't do anything for free. He doesn't do anything kindly. The reason he doesn't give to charity is because he doesn't get what he sees as a return on investment. I give money to feed poor kids. What are they going to do for me? They're poor kids. They live in another country. They can't even work as towel girls at Mar-a-Lago because they're not in Florida. Why the hell would I do that? That's bad money after bad, right? That's my impersonation of your dear leader, right? Donald J. Trump. He's a delight. So our friend Mr. Hernandez, free as a buzzard, as I think the Three Stooges like to say, and he's out there, and his homeboy El Chapo is in the max of all max prisons in Colorado, where which is truly, I mean, that's one thing we do. We do prisons really well. We do special forces really well. I mean, we saw that in Venezuela. I mean, salute to the Green Berets. That group, JSOC, right? Joint Special Operations Command, which coordinates all of the all of the best, right? The SEALs and the Green Berets, and then there are elite groups that are tasked just to rescue downed military excuse me, not officers, operators, to get them out of bad places. So that they're also in the JSOC, and they're elite and impeccably trained, the baddest people in the world, right? They're fantastic, and they want to be able to use their skills. So if you think about it, when Trump originally said, when he came back into office, we'll just practice in our cities, right? Turns out to be not all that funny. Uh, in any case, I'm going to get in trouble from She Who Must Be Obeyed if I go too much longer. And yeah, so what I'm looking for, of course, is reunited, and it feels so good. Juan Orlando Hernandez and El Chapo Guzman somewhere, say within a year, right? Ghislaine Maxwell will have already been paroled, but I mean, Guzman, that'll be a big thing, and he'll get a lot of blowback from the Senate and others. But how well has any blowback? What has blowback done to discourage Donald J. Trump from ridiculous behavior? Done very little. So, in any case, just uh, some drugs for a Tuesday evening, and wishing you all a beautiful night. We'll check in sometime tomorrow, and it's a pleasure as always. Thank you, restack and do all of those fun things. Thank you so much.